Welcome to Thoughts for Change Makers LinkedIn Live, where we challenge the status quo, elevate performance, and foster exponential growth. And today, my guest is Natalie Turner. She is an experienced innovation specialist, having spent over 25 years working as a corporate innovation director, a business consultant, and entrepreneur. Usually, when you start, you can't stop, right? She has worked for and consulted with some of the world's leading organizations, including Cisco Systems, GSK, Leo Pharma, even worked with the Singaporean government, helping them build innovation systems, culture, and capability, as well as generating new ideas to help them grow their teams and businesses. She is also the founder of the Entheo network based out of Singapore, and she has made her passion for purpose and people-driven innovation practical as well as inspirational to elevate people thinkings on not only what they can create, but how the mind, skill set, and cultural environment. And that make everyday innovation happen. Welcome, Natalie.
Thank you. What an introduction. Thank you, Lisa. Fantastic to be here with you today.
Thank you. And you see, as well, we can acknowledge technology because you are currently in Portugal. Am I right?
I am. That's right.
And yes, and I am in Paris, in France. And one question I quickly like to ask all the people coming in this LinkedIn Live is, what is your definition of team performance? Roughly, what is it? What does it mean for you?
Well, I know we're going to explore it a lot in this session today. So if I sort of look at the highest level of what I think it is, it's when a group of people come together, and they don't necessarily have to be an intact team. It could be virtual, hybrid, all different types. But they are more than a group. They become more about being part of something that they feel passionate about, alive in, and they feel purposeful in working towards achieving something together, where they feel that their own individual purpose, if you like, is aligned to something bigger than themselves. It's become a collective. And that allows the performance, not just of the individual, but of the collective to actually create and do amazing things together.
I love this idea of going from the I to the we to the collective. I individual to collective. That for team performance, it's definitely key. So. And by the way, everyone joining us, you can share your questions, your remarks in the chat, and we'll be happy to share them as long as they are coming. So now your work has focused on helping individuals and teams unleash their innovation potential through your book. Yes, you can innovate. I like it. I need to make some energy on this title. I love the title. And your model, the 6 Eyes for innovation. Can you tell us more about why you invented the model and wrote this book?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's been a long journey, as most things are in innovating and getting out new things into the world. But I suppose if I sort of go back a while in my career, I used to be a design thinking facilitator. So I would work with, large brands with looking at developing very customer-centered solutions, new products, new services for these different organizations. And I got really frustrated because no matter how well we would create things, new concepts, new ideas, a lot of these things would get lost once they went back into organizational life. And it really got me thinking about what is it that stops our ideas happening. And I think it's not just about the ideas, it's about so many other factors. It's about leadership, management, culture, systems, processes. It's a lot of things that really affect how we can successfully innovate. And so that got me really on a line of inquiry to look for systems, architectures, models that would incorporate all these different facets that can either enable us or inhibit us to innovate. And so that was really the quest. And I went in search, couldn't find something that I felt brought all these elements together. And that was really my inspiration. I sort of identified that need, if you like, for a very much a people and a purpose-centered approach to innovating. And that's why I created the 6 Eyes. But I'm very happy to take you through the model, if you like, just so that people can visualize it, because it is a very colorful model. So maybe if we want to put that up on the screen.
Yes. And as well, we do have lots of people already asking some question if you want to have a look at it.
Sure. Maybe can we come back to those in a minute?
Yes, let's do that.
Okay, great. So let me just very briefly, because obviously there's a lot of complexity in something that looks relatively simple, and that's purposeful in itself, because it's all about sort of unpacking complexity. So we've got these 6 Eyes. Identify, which is all about looking for opportunity. It's when we are sort of standing on that horizon, if you like, looking out to see what is changing in our environment. And we need the mindset of curiosity very, very strongly in that phase of the innovation journey. Then we have Ignite, which is all about creative solutioning, problem solving. It's coming up with that idea. It's that phase of innovation where we often think this is innovation. But as you see, it's only one element. Then we have Investigate, which is all around testing, prototyping, researching, validating. And we need very much the mindset of critical thinking at this stage, quite different to the Identify, curiosity, and the creativity of Ignite. Then we have Invest, what I often call the graveyard of ideas. It's where our ideas sadly die. Over and over again, where we don't get backing, we don't get buy-in, we don't get leadership support, we don't get something stops our ideas in their tracks. And a very, very important part of the journey, which I felt was missing in a lot of models. And here we need that mindset of courage. We've really got to step out. We've got to say yes, we've got to say no, but we have to make decisions. And it's very, very important part. Then we have Implement, the hard work of innovating. And implementation is all around getting something out there, creating value out of a new idea, and you need that mindset of commitment. And then we have Improve. Improve is all around looking at optimizing, leveraging, seeing how we can do things better, differently. And even though I've explained them in a linear way, it's a circular model. And you can see there's a lot of dynamism, because when we're innovating, we're going backwards and forwards, iterating and iterating. And then you can see right in the center, we have purpose. And purpose is all around why. Why are we trying to innovate? What are we trying to achieve, for what end and to what purpose? And we can talk about purpose a little bit more later on, but it's very, very central to the model. And the last thing I just want to mention are the 2 little triangles, which are more than just design. They are actually representing 2 fundamental aspects of building strong innovation in terms of a way of working, or a process, if you like. And that is culture, the underpinning cultural environment that stimulates innovation to happen. And it's not just to stimulate creativity, it's to stimulate a culture of investment, to stimulate a culture of commitment, etc. So each of these phases needs that underpinning. And then the outer little triangle represents processes. You need processes to support our ways of doing things and doing things differently, because each of them requires different ways to enable that to happen. So that could be tools, it could be systems, it could be processes to allow innovation to happen. So that, in a nutshell, Lisan, is the 6 Eyes. Obviously, we could talk about it all day, but it's very, very there's a lot going on in there.
Definitely, and I love the fact that you mentioned that it's not only about design. That we can see there is a lot of in-depth thinking and work and done on this model. And now, if we want to look at this model through the lens of team performance, like if we have now lots of managers, they want to improve their team performance, what do you think we can focus on?
Yeah, it's a good one too. Well, let we go on to the next slide actually, on purpose. Sorry, we can come. Well, okay, no, we'll talk about this first because I think it's central to team performance actually and
Correct.
individual performance.
Yes.
I think of purpose in a multi-layered way. Yeah, so we
Mm.
have a little bit like we were saying earlier. We have our individual purpose, and knowing what your own purpose is quite fundamental to you in your own life. So I know that my purpose is to inspire, elevate, and enable people to live their fullest potential. That is it. That's why I exist. That is my
Mm.
life. Now, whether I'm writing a book on innovation or working with a client or training or coaching or writing a novel, as I'm doing right now, it's central to the dynamism of my own energy and for my own performance. So personal purpose is really important. But then we've got to harness that somehow. We don't work in isolation. We're often now working in very different ways, hybrid ways, virtual ways, with other people. So we've got to actually pool our collective purposes together around a team purpose. Whatever we have been assembled to do together, that's
Mm.
really, really important. So having that level of team purpose enables the individual to start to flourish and to have to channel their own energy, their skills, their mindset into something bigger than themselves. So purpose is layered. We've got the individual, we have the team, we could have a reason, maybe just a group's been assembled to achieve something, and then it's going to unassemble. But we also have organizational purpose. So how does the team fit in a department that fits in an organization, that fits in an industry that's impacting a bigger purpose? And I think if we have an alignment between these levels of purpose that runs through us, up through something else to have a bigger impact in the world, in a sustainable way, then wow, then we are flying. Yeah, then we have so much energy that is actually being channeled through in a way to make a big impact with our lives and with our work.
Mm. Yes. And the last few years, what did you see people struggling regarding with purpose, whether it was individual purpose or team purpose? Like, what was the impact or the challenge or the struggle that people can go through? What do you see out there?
It's an interesting one because I was actually having a conversation yesterday with a client around this, and we were talking about onboarding young people into the workplace, particularly through COVID, and how, it's been a very, very challenging time. And for older people, Gen Xers and whatever, like ourselves or myself anyway, we've been in and out of organizations, having years of experience, all that tacit knowledge that you have through relationships that you have with people. So it wasn't maybe so isolating as it was for younger people who are coming in to organizational life and not knowing how they were really going to connect in to the bigger purpose of what maybe they were about, and maybe they're still discovering, but also into the teams with which they were working. And I think that that's caused a big disconnect in people. How we build. So it's not necessarily, let's all get back in the office. Maybe we need different types of ways of working now, rather than, let's go back to an old model because the old model sort of worked. Well, actually, maybe not. Maybe that didn't work that well either, because people were quite isolated in their own little cubicles of working, and maybe didn't feel that connection and that energy of working with other people. So I think, that's one of the things that I've sort of seen and witnessed and have been working with quite a lot in terms of one of the big challenges of this alignment of purpose. But maybe what we can do is sort of look at the different types of not just of people, but of our perception of ourselves, if you like, and that's one of the things I've spent a lot of time researching and building, is to create something which helps us understand not our personality necessarily, because there's loads of things that do that, and that's absolutely fundamental to understanding how we perform and how we turn up and how we work with other people, but also our skill sets as well. So we could maybe move on to the next slide, Lisa, and we could just talk about that just briefly, and then I can go into a little bit more detail. So if we go back to our individual performance, each of us has a skill set. It's developed over time. Even if you're young, you're obviously doing different things, trying different things out, you're developing skills. The more, you've worked, the more you have had more experience. But we tend to have certain types of skill sets that we gravitate to, and then we build our roles around, or we contribute our skills around these different areas. So when I built the model, I didn't want to just build something that was around a process of innovation, but also really center on people and their contribution, how they think they can best effectively contribute their skill set into teams and into workplaces. So I mentioned earlier when I was going through the model, we've got the 6 I's and these 6 mindsets, but we can dive deeper into understanding the skills of the individual. So if you go on to the slide 4, I think it was in my deck. Yeah, here. When I wrote the book, Yes, You Can Innovate, which was back in 2018. And I wrote that actually because clients were saying, can you just codify all of this and give us lots of practical tips and tools and how to, so that we can actually make innovating, that verb of innovation, more practical for people in their day-to-day lives. So that's the reason I wrote Yes, You Can Innovate. And it's done very, very well and continues to do well, which is fantastic because it's getting this out into the world to help people. I interviewed 6 different people. Here they are. I won't go into the detail of them now, but they represent these different types of skill sets. So I created a questionnaire that measures people's perception of their innovation strengths. And I've got my results to just illustrate this so that everyone listening can think about themselves. If you go on to the next slide. Yeah, here we go. This is my results on the 6 I's of Innovation questionnaire. So basically you get asked 36 different questions, and they're all related to the concepts of the 6 I's. And you have to sort of rank, how strong do you think you are at a particular skill? And how important is it to you in your work? Because it may or may not be important. And that's an important thing to understand, because you can then think, oh, is there a gap analysis here between what I think I'm good at and what I feel I need? So you can see here, we've got the darker bars, which are skills, and the lighter bars, which are my individual perception of what is important to me. So you can see, just quickly looking at it, that I perceive myself, and this is a perception, a self-perception. It's not an absolute truth,
Correct.
It's a perception, it's a map.
Yes,
I see myself as an identifier and igniter, not surprisingly, maybe, given the work I've done over my career and creating all of this. But I'm also I see myself as an implementer, so I like getting things done. I'm an action-orientated person.
Yes,
but
that's how I know you.
Improve. I jump improve, and sometimes I jump investigate. But both of them, you can see, are very, very important. So when we come to sort of thinking about skill sets, it's how do I best contribute my strengths whilst understanding my limitations and my weaknesses, collaborating with those that are good or better than me, and there are many. Can you imagine how much investigation was required to create something like this? I think sometimes oh my, if I'd have known back then when I had this idea, but yes, so years of research, statistical validation, testing, all that required, but I have great people that I work with that are good at that. So this also is very important when we're thinking about performance. If we need to understand ourselves, we need to deeply understand who we are, our personality, what drives us, what motivates us, but also what we think we're good at. And I sort of call this like a strengths finder for innovation, if you like, because this is sort of tapping into the individual strengths of the person. Lisa, I don't know about you. What do you think you are? What would you think your skill set is across the side?
Definitely that I identify, ignite, and implement. But what I see a lot in teams is the lack of improve. I think
Mhm.
most of companies, they go on and they like to spend a lot of time in identify, ignite, investigate, invest, implement. But the last phase, improve for change, is so crucial. Like,
Yeah.
to use feedback loops and understanding, okay, how can we improve? Let's do that. How can we measure what we are doing and then get this feedback loop and go back into improving?
Yes. Yeah.
Where do you see teams maybe needed more help? In which section of that do you think that you
Well,
feel
I agree with you, and being someone that sees improve as obviously very important, but I don't perceive my strengths to be as strong on that.
mm,
I can understand that, and I also see it in organizational life. We're always moving on. Yeah, we're always, oh right, what's next? What's next? What's next?
mm,
And there's very little reflection going on about, okay, what's worked, not worked, what failed. What can I learn from this? How do I move
yes,
on? How do we optimize? What have we got in front of us that we could easily innovate around today?
yeah,
That we could drive loads and loads of value. We're always like, well, what's really new? What could we go off doing that? So I think it's interesting. It depends obviously on the team. Actually,
yes,
if you go into the next slide, because I think I can illustrate this with a
okay,
team. So this is a team report of
mm,
a group, a
yes,
team that's come together.
mm,
So you can see their overall results. So
mm,
working, say, with a team like this that sees
yes,
themselves, remember self-perception, collective self-perception,
mm,
high on identify and ignite, but improves pretty high up there too.
no,
But
correct, yeah,
investigate,
mm,
is a bit lower. Obviously, if this team has been assembled to look at strategy and change and new things
mm,
emerging and come up with new solutions, then they're probably going to, be quite well kitted out for that from a skills perspective. Obviously, there are other
mm,
things that influence things. But where they may struggle and where they may need support is getting the organizational buy-in, or selling their ideas, getting support, stakeholder management,
yes,
driving change. They might have
yes,
tons of ideas,
yes,
but they might lack getting that traction of
correct,
investment behind them.
mm,
So of course, if you're working with a team like that, that's where you need to be thinking about, how do you
mm,
play to your strengths? How do you start to unpack your blind spots, build up the capability in the team to be thinking, how can they leverage other people, or do they need to recruit or bring other people in that maybe are more stronger on that particular skill set? So
mm,
depending on what the team's purpose is, what it's assembled for, and therefore what type of interventions might be required to help them,
mm.
is very is very important, and how important they place certain things or certain activities on, in terms of what they're trying to achieve.
Correct. Is it aligned with their purpose and what they're doing, and prioritizing the thing that really matters?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it because this tool is giving like a quick snapshot of where we are at and what we need to focus on. And I guess according to what needs to be done, you have strategies
Mm.
that. I'm just curious on this previous slide, if we can go back into this one.
Mm.
Which one you feel is the most difficult for teams to work on?
Mm. Well, again, it's always going to be relative, and it'll always
Yes, I know.
depend, depending on who you have. Yeah.
Yes.
Um, I think.
Or like a story of a client
Yeah.
that you've been helping and
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
challenging
I
situation
think,
they.
yeah, one of the ones that's really tough that I do see as a pattern is identify.
Okay.
I think because even with Ignite, people might not perceive themselves necessarily as creative, but a
Mm,
lot of the time we're hired in jobs to solve problems, so
yes.
we are constantly in a solutioning mode. Even as
Mm,
consultants, you're hired to solve problems.
yeah.
So your brain is always thinking about, what can I do, what can I do, what can I do, how
Mm,
can I do this, how can I do this. And I
mm,
think this stage of identify, which requires you to actually step out of a solutioning mind and have the mindset of curiosity, to be
mm,
able to see to be able to stand back from, to look, to understand, to see patterns, to see what's changing, to be quiet, to have quiet space, to think, to ponder, to walk, to let the brain just sort of, mull over, I think is a difficult one, because we're all charging all the time to get things done. And the identify mindset requires certain types of practices. I think this is why mindfulness, which we're seeing more and more now, thankfully, coming into the corporate world, is very important. Because if you're not mindful, if you're not able to just be mindful of what's going on in yourself, or to be the fly on the wall in a meeting or in a virtual meeting, to be able to sort of see, to stand back from, you often miss things, because you're in that mode of getting stuff done and driving stuff out there, or solutioning, or testing, or whatever it might be. So I think identify is one of the tough ones, actually. And I think, for the identifiers that I know too, they find it tough being identifiers in organizations, because oftentimes they're saying, hey, wait, stop, we're going in the wrong direction, or this is happening, or this is changing in our customers, or we need to do something different. And to be able to cultivate that in a team, to help elevate the team's performance around that, requires certain types of leadership management, which is, let's create space. Let's create space so that we can think, so that we can doodle, so that we can mull, so that we can see, observe, change in our customers, change in our landscape, change in the ways of working, rather than just charging back to old solutions or thinking we know the answer. And so I would say that would be my encouragement to everyone today. Put a bit of time in your busy schedule and just have a reflect, have a think, have a journal. What's going on? Where are you going? What are you doing? What's your team doing? Are you actually performing to the best of your ability together?
Yes, and definitely that's something I'm seeing in my work, around cognitive diversity. It's like the key principle and the key to get high performing team is to first make sure that everyone is, in psychological safety, that we can hear everyone's voices, but as well we allow space to hear those voices at different levels, and mixing maybe people from different maturity within the business, different people from different teams, and putting that into one room, everyone in one room, but as well asking them to do some pre-work, because it's not, sometimes some people have different thinking style, and some people will need time to think things through before, and that's how they will come up maybe with great ideas. So we have someone that just writes something. Let's have a look. Fancy attention between implementers and igniter in organizations, a drive to implement solutions with time and effort focused on overcoming the challenges of implementing a solution, with an ability to pause and reflect what the problem that needs solving is, and allowing time to explore new ideas that may resolve it better. So what do you think? Do you think this is a good friction to have among teams, to have this tension?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because you saw my profile, which I actually, I'm quite a high implementer as well. And it's the whole aspect of implementation, I think, is a really interesting one when we look at it through the lens of innovating. Because, one thing I found with the model, and with working, training, teaching, facilitating people, groups around the world, is that those that are high on implementation in the skill set, on the 6 Eyes model, they often don't think of themselves as the innovators. They think of themselves as just people that get stuff done, and that the innovators are those creative people over in a corner somewhere coming up with some ideas, and that it's going to land on their desk and they're going to have to drive that idea out into the world. And so what's been very, very interesting is sort of busting that myth. And I say over and over again, implementers are innovators. Implementers are innovators. Without implementation, we have no innovation. Full stop. No values being created. Nothing has happened. And we can have all the ideas we like in the world, But if we don't drive those ideas out into the world, then they don't become real. Yeah. So creativity can become real is when we have innovation and impact from hopefully value being created in some way or another. But I think this tension is an interesting one. I think if people are aware of their own strengths and you can feel that in yourself. So I have that need to move fast. You know, it's my personality, plus it's my skills, because that's what I've done for 25, 30 years, whatever, even as a kid. I had my first business at 5. So, you know, I've always been action orientated. But I think if people are very aware that they have this tension, then they can call that out. Yeah. They can sort of, and they're in a team, they can say, hey guys, are we moving too fast right now? Do we need to just stop and pause and just go back into our purpose, go back into the center of the model and look out from that viewpoint, that vantage point, out onto what they're doing and say, yeah, maybe actually we are not doing this the right way, or there's a better way, or let's go over to improve. Let's look at what we could do there. So I think all of these eyes have a tension to them, but the tension, if it is visible and it is made aware to everybody in terms of understanding themselves, that's when the dynamism can happen, because it's no longer a personal affront to someone. You know, it's not like you're attacking someone in your team where you're saying, oh, well, why aren't you like me? I want more people like me around, you know. You're actually saying, actually, what your view is really valid. And I'm hearing you and I'm seeing you and I'm listening to you. And let's just stop. Let's pause. Let's take a breath. And sometimes it doesn't have to be like a week or something. It could just be 5 minutes. It depends what you're doing. But even to just stop and pause and reflect, and then you move back into whatever it is you're trying to do. So I think this creative tension between these elements, and this is where, you know, when I was talking about design thinking at the beginning, design thinking is not enough. It's absolutely imperative. Without it, we can't create people-centered solutions. We're just designing stuff in abstract, yeah. But it's the organizational development, the team development, the cultural aspects that allow us really to get these great things that we might invent and create together out into the world. And that's why we've got to have all of these different diverse viewpoints, diverse mindsets and skill sets harnessed together. And the 6 eyes, the logo, if you can see it, is all those strands working together in unity. They're different, but they're all valid, and they all have different viewpoints, and they're all valid. And the leader, the manager, and leadership, remember, is not just an authority from a position, a positional power. It's whoever has leadership in that stage. And so really sort of harnessing that and being able to bring that diversity together to have higher performance is something that I think is, you know, obviously it's going to grow in more complexity because of the nature of the world right now, but it's going to become more of a skill set, a facilitation skill set that we really need in our leadership and in managers and in people generally.
Beautiful, Natalie. Yeah, if everyone got more questions, please bring them on. Do I have more questions? So we
comments, you know.
Yeah, or comments. Yeah, we can see a lot of comments. So we saw the importance of purpose in team, but sometimes, you know, the alignment might be very difficult. Like, you know, how manager can sometimes, you know, understand the purpose of each individuals and link that to the team as a collective. Anything you would like to share on that one? Like sometimes it can be maybe a bit far away. It's different world and
yeah. Well, that's the important thing in relationship, isn't it? I mean, it's about understanding each other. It's about having empathy. It's about listening to each other. It's about saying, well, what's important to you? How can you best contribute? You know, and I think back, you know, some of my early jobs in early times of my career. You know, one of my first jobs, I was hired as a data analyst. You know, you saw my skill set. I mean, even then I was like, oh my God, what am I doing in this job? I was just in front of spreadsheets all the time. And luckily I had actually a young manager at that time. And he actually sat me down. He was younger, quite a lot younger than me. And he said to me, you're in the wrong role. I'm going to create a new role for you. What is it you like doing? And we had a great discussion. And actually, he was so instrumental to the rest of my life. That one conversation and him and I sitting down and creating a new role for me. And I became like a scout. You know, I became a scout. I was looking out. I was the identifier. I didn't know these terms back then, but that's what I was. You know, that was my skill set. I could see things. I was curious. I was out and about. I liked meeting people and talking and listening and discovering new things. And so he actually created a strategic analyst role for me. And this was in a large corporate. And that really actually propelled my whole career. So I think that if you're managing and leading people and you're forming teams and you're assembling and disassembling teams, it is to sit down or at least, have a chat with people about who they are and what's important to them. You can use lots of different types of tools that are available in the market as well, both for personality assessment as well as skills assessment, like this model. But it's fundamental that we listen. We listen, we take time for that, and we start to see where the potential is in people to help develop their skill sets. But let me give you another example, which was the opposite of that one with that brilliant manager. Was I had another manager at another time, and you have these performance reviews and all of that at the end of the year, and he was going through mine, and he was like, really top networker, person that can go into any situation, talk to anyone, make networks, strategic thinker, boom, 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 tick, 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 tick. Then it came down to my Excel spreadsheet skill sets. And this was like a few years later. And he said, Excel spreadsheet, your skill set around that isn't really good. I think we need to put you on intermediate and advanced Excel training, And I was like, wow, you really missed it. You really missed it. Actually, it didn't last long with that manager, and I moved on into another role. But I think, I think playing to people's strengths and harnessing their strengths is what enables them to perform, and creating the environment that actually stimulates their motivation. We all have intrinsic motivation inside us.
Yes.
Yeah, and if we can create better climates for people, for who they are, for their personality, for their skill set to flourish, they come alive. They wake up. They wake up. They're suddenly got energy pouring through their body.
They are looking forward to their day. They want to win the day.
Absolutely. And then performance obviously will go up because people got more energy. They're feeling more alive. They're on the course. And if that energy, and it's interesting, Entheo, when I created Entheo back in 2006 in England, the word enthusiasm comes from the Greek entheo, literally speaking God or within spirit. Yeah. When we are in a state of enthusiasm, when we are enthusiastic, we have an energy that pours through us. It's like an unlocks us. We all know that. We all know it. Everyone's felt it in their life. So if we have that more in our work, the enthusiasm, that directed enthusiasm, which can pour towards creating something and having an impact with our life in our teams, then wow, we can really impact the world around us.
Yeah, Natalie, we have a question from David. I'm giving everyone time to read it.
Okay, let's have a look. Thank you, David. Presumably you need all 6 eyes in place for the team to innovate successfully. Do you ever find that there is interpersonal tension between any of these types because individuals haven't recognized the value of difference? In other words, everyone is supposed to be like me. Absolutely, every day, David. Every day. Yeah, it's. I think what's really, really good about. Well, let's go. There's 2 questions there. The first question: do we need all eyes? I think, again, it goes back to what's the team's purpose and what's it trying to do. Yeah. So if the team is a multifaceted team that's got to go right through an innovation journey together, it's going to help if you've got a good spread of skill sets to work together, and you can lean on each other. You can call each other in. I often liken it to the idea to a baton in a relay race. You're running with the idea, but then you've got to pass it on to someone. And I'm not the best investigator. I need someone else running up behind me to pick that fat nut and take it, because they're going to be far better, far more efficient, far more clever than I am at that stage. So it depends on what we're trying to do. If you say you're a team of igniters, because actually your job, and a job I had many years ago was working in an incubator in a large corporate for generating new ideas. That's what I did all day long. So we were a team of igniters. That was it. And it was great fun. Can you imagine how much fun we had? Because we didn't actually have to do anything with the ideas. It was generate new ideas, come up with stuff. So obviously, you won't necessarily need or want the other eye so much if that's all you're tasked to do. So that's the answer, I think, to the first question, or a answer, not the answer. There's lots of answers. The second one, I think, is more around sort of when we can make visible that which is seemingly not articulated, when we can hold up a mirror to each other, which I think is what the 6 eyes can do. All it is a map. It's a tool. It's a method. It's an architecture to help bring more or unpack complexity. That's what it's trying to do. So if I'm working with you and I know that you are a great investor, and you're really, really good, you're really pragmatic at seeing what, well, maybe this ain't gonna work, or maybe you need to be doing this, or you need to be a bit more down to earth, Natalie, come down from your sky, from being up in the sky. And I don't really know that or value that in you. I'm just going to be charging past you with my energy, and I'm charging past you into implementation, and then I'm going to regret making maybe some decisions. So it's really important that we value difference, that we value all the different ways of thinking, because it's going to make our ideas better. If we miss, say, the investigate phase of our journey, and we just charge off into implementation, our ideas won't be as good, But a downside could be you could spend far too long in an investigate stage and never get any traction on your idea to move it forward, because you're trying to perfect it. And we know now that it's all about iteration. It's all about, that movement of an idea. So I think it's bringing and making visible these things so that you can discuss them, you can have them out in the open. And it's not just about what you are trying to do, but how you work. Yeah, how you collaborate, how you work with each other to make new things work together. So I think, that's how I would answer that question. I don't know if you've got any additions on that, Lisa.
No, I think you sum it very well. It's but I see that David say everyone is supposed to be like me, and that's, as a human being, we feel more comfortable to surround ourselves with commonalities, people like us, whether it's like external traits or maybe it's like internal traits on like personality style, thinking styles. And so that's right, some manager will hire people that are like them, but sometimes you will see that it doesn't even benefit the team with their functions, what they need to give as some outcomes. So I think it's about the managers, the leaders, to really, as you mentioned as well, to not only think about the ideas, to get in this first, what is the name? Identify, and to really double on curiosity of ideas, but on curiosity about people. Like, who do you have in your team? Who do you need in your team? And what do you do to foster diversity of thoughts within your existing team? Because you have tools and methodology that are out there that can really up-level the performance of the team with all those tools. So because I had it was back in January when I was talking in front of a team, and the big boss said, so I need to fire everyone and to hire again new people so I can have a diverse team. And I said, no, because in terms of performance, that will be a disaster. You can work on cognitive diversity with your existing team.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
that is about being curious as a leader, as you mentioned.
Yeah,
Curious.
and creating the space for that to
Yes.
happen. I think it's a really interesting point too, because when I think back, another example in my own career, um, organizations can go on recruitment drives, can't they, for diverse thinkers, for different thinkers, come in. And I remember one recruitment drive that I came in on, along with other people, was it was for igniters. That's what they were looking for. Yeah. So they were looking for people that were going to be creative and come up with new solutions. And, you land in this organization as an igniter. And what happens? You get told, nah, can't do that. No, we tried that last year. No, regulation would never have that. No, can't do that. No. Yeah. Now, if you're around, even as an igniter, even as an enthusiast, even as someone you're like, yeah, let's do it, let's go for it. After a while, you get worn down.
Yes.
Your energy gets worn down,
Mm.
and you start to think, what am I doing here? So it's really, really important. And I remember in that one, I was gone. I stayed 2 years and then I left. It was, and I think everybody else left too, that was on that recruitment drive. So we've got to be very careful, I think, when we think about individuals, individuals are not isolated. They come into a system. They come into a team system, an organizational culture. And if you want to get the best out of them, regardless of what they are, and it could be the other way around, I've worked in incubators, accelerators, innovation hubs, where most people hired are igniters and identifiers. And they're also, oh yeah, we must get some investigators and investor type people in. And then they don't fit in. Their skill set's not recognized, it's not valued, it's not supported, it's not nurtured. And then what happens to those people? They just start shutting up. Yeah, they just start, they're not going to say anything because all these other people's energy. And this is important because we've got to understand ourselves. I'm an identifier igniter primarily. And I know I can be a pain to some people. They're like, oh no, here she goes again with another idea, So I have to be very aware of how I rein back in or think, particularly if I'm leading or managing, I've got to go above. I've got to be in the helicopter. I've got to look down. What does the team need? What do people need from me? And it might or may not be me in my strength at that point. It might be I call out someone else in the team and I say, you right now, we need you. We need your energy, your spirit, your skill set to take the lead. And I think, if we have that sort of reflective ability on our own skill sets, particularly if we're leading and managing other people, then we're able to cultivate and nurture environments that stimulate other people's skill sets to flourish. And so all of these things are about people skills, their facilitation skills, their ability to build great teams.
Thank you, Natalie. It's about skill set, about the environment. In fact, it's not only about people isolated, I like it, and it's about as well the environment. Like, would they have a belonging, and would the culture be a fit for those people and for everyone to thrive? And that is complexity. So that's why with your model, you are bringing more simplicity as well for people to yes. And that's why when they ask you to write the book, most people they really want to have solutions, fixes, and they want it needs to. And as a test, I know the work because I'm also developing my own test. I know the work that is behind it, but then it's more simple. The information is more digestible for a human brain to say, okay, and then to self-assess, and then to say, okay, that's bring more awareness, and then be more into action mode and implement things. So
Absolutely.
I'm looking for more questions if we have, but while I'm waiting for more questions, I was wondering, is there anything new coming up on your side?
Anything new? Yes, always something new. And it's very interesting actually, because I have to be, and you saw my perception of my strengths. I'm not that high on improve, but I have to be in the improve quite a lot. So I sort of redirect my ignite skill set, if you like, into the improve space. And so it's an interesting journey what we have been on in terms of starting a boutique consultancy back in England 2006, moving to Singapore 2010, growing the business out of Asia, growing the 6 I's, developing all of this model and everything else. And then writing the book, Yes, You Can Innovate, obviously then took us more global. And we started getting people contacting us about, oh, I like your model. Can we bring the model into, our organization? And then really what happened then was we created a certification program, because people were like, can you train me, whether they were independent people or they were in corporates, can you train us to be more effective, more efficient with what you have invented? And that's when we built up a whole 4-day program face-to-face then that obviously COVID hit, so boom, all went to travel. All of us stopped traveling overnight and had to innovate, had to invent, and so created a virtual program training people online, still face-to-face, but that was very cumbersome and wasn't that global because of time distances. So then now what we have created is a hybrid program where I have been videoed and codified a lot of my teaching around this onto video. And then we have live coaching calls with the group. And then we built out a community of practitioners. And we have people all over the world now. And that's now starting to grow. So our next big thing, if you like, is the launch, the founder member launch of that program next month, at the end of next month. And so if you are listening to this and you think, I want some of that, please get in touch with me. The type of people I'm looking for are people who are passionate enthusiasts, who are go-getters, who love change, who love pioneering, who love being out on the edge, who service other organizations, or either independent consultants, or you're inside an organization and you're trying to drive change, you're trying to get things moving, and you want to be part of something bigger than yourself, align your purpose, learn some very comprehensive architectures and tools to help you to do that, to help you move the world, really, to help you have that dent in the universe, as they say. So please reach out to me if that's you, if that's the job description. So that's what I'm looking for. And it doesn't matter what your skill set is on the 6 I's. And actually, if you're a great investor or an investigator or an improver, even better sometimes for me. But all of the community of practitioners around the world is fantastic, and we're collaborating, we're doing projects together. People are doing this in their own markets, their own organizations, and it's very, very exciting time. So please contact me if that's you. And also, if anyone wants to just have a free masterclass that I've videoed of me talking about this, and you can just play it for your team at work, or reflect on your own self, then you can do that. I can put that maybe in the chat in a moment. And the masterclass link, let me just put that in. That's a free masterclass. You can just register online. That's something else you can do. I also have a free chapter of my book on yesyoucaninnovate.com. You can go and download the Ignite chapter. And if you want to know your profile, then just go onto our site, 6-i-innovation.com, and we have an area there. You can actually buy a profile and just do an individual profile of your own innovation strengths. So that's some of the things that are happening and things that you can get involved in. Reach out to me on LinkedIn if you're listening to this and you're keen to do something new, or you just would like to have a chat about innovation and how we can help. Love to be in touch with you.
Fantastic. I can see a lot of people on LinkedIn are excited about that. So that's great. The emoji, I like the last emoji. It's been it's not the first choice that pop up, so you can see that people are enthusiastic out there.
Great.
That's I'm thrilled to see that. And I really like the title of this LinkedIn Live about thoughts for change makers, because that's the same people I want to surround myself as well, is about change, but makers. It's about doing it.
Yeah.
It's about the implementation, not only having the idea on a standalone thing. So yes, thank you everyone. And I would love to stay in touch with people as well on LinkedIn. I have more speakers like Natalie as well coming up in every few weeks. So if you like it, please join us for the next series. Bye for now.
Thank you, Lisa, and thank you, everyone.